This is From the Mezzanine, a podcast all about film and TV. We are Matt and Chuck, two guys who love all things film and TV. Our opinions are our own. We don't do ads. We're not here to squeeze money out of you or beg for likes. Over the next 90 minutes plus, we're talking all things film and TV. Chuck, why don't you explain a little bit about what we're doing today?
Yeah, thank you for, setting us up, Matt. Thank you for carrying the show on your back last week with your wonderful rant. Because as it was Memorial Day weekend, life just kind of got ahead of me a little bit, so I needed to take a step back and just kind of commit to the show you're about to see tonight, which is going to be a fucking barn burner. There might be an intermission. We're going to do our best to keep it under 2 hours, but that might not be fucking possible because of the two movies we have to discuss and the sheer amount of content that there has been to actually take the time to watch in the last 2 weeks since we've had a full show. So, yeah, excited to be back. I got the animations running when I probably shouldn't be. But here we are. Things are kind of fast and loose, but what we still have to deal with is some unfinished business. Just because it's smart to, I feel like we should just take the time to have a fair use disclaimer. I'm not going to read all that bullshit. It's on the screen for a reason. And just know that this is all totally legal, man. Get off my fucking case. I don't care who you are. It's amazing how chill some of these fuckers can be and how unreasonable some people can be. So, preemptively, just leave us alone. Like, we are not here for the likes. We're not here for really anything besides to have the chance to actually make something out of all the time we commit to our strange little hobby, which is, consuming every worthwhile film, TV show, what have you. But last week you put a question, not last week, 2 weeks ago, you threw a question our way relating to, what filmmaker you felt had kind of fallen off the map and deserved a chance to, get the spotlight again, which I thought was a wonderfully astute, way to, start, that weekend off that I had. I just filled a notebook up, and ultimately, I was really torn about who I wanted to pick, because I was coming at it from two different ways. Either it was someone who was established, who, any reasonable person would, expect to have, a new movie coming out, as much as possible. Like, look at, some people like Takashi Miike has like 5 movies a year sometimes. Yeah. And then you got, dudes like Peter Weir who make a fucking amazing movie like Master and Commander after the career he had before that, and then completely just vanish for the rest of this young century that we're in. But, at the same time, I have to cheat. So he gets an honorable mention, Peter Weir. I love the guy, Australian, new wave pioneer. But at the same time, it's a strange to me that he has fallen off as a voice. But if there's a filmmaker who absolutely fell off the face of the earth, and I wish would just fucking make something, it's Shane Carruth. Yeah, the auteur behind.
I figured this was coming.
Yeah, it's kind of obvious, especially if you know me. But he's instantly who I considered, and the reality is, it's his own dang fault, and fanboys can now read his screenplays and think about what could have been. I literally downloaded the screenplay for The Modern Ocean right before the show started, because apparently he put that out there. But yeah, he's ultimately who I would pick, because geez Louise, give us something. We're almost 10 years up on the release of Upstream Color, which came all that time after Primer came out. And I just really feel like, because of obvious reasons, if you know anything about, his situation recently, he's kind of not going to have any chance to get any project off the ground unless it's even more bare bones than Primer was. You know what I mean? So that's the thing. That's the best I can hope for at this point. He's just too much of a weird Neanderthal recluse, and I just don't see that changing.
Yeah, and it was so strange how he would, like, you know, he only did a couple movies, but then he would, like, show up in other people's movies all the time as, like, an actor.
Yeah.
And so it's like, what are you doing? Like, why are you acting in this weird, like, mumblecore movie? Like, get on your directing game, dude.
Yeah, no shit. Like, if you... Because if I watched, like, the sizzle reels he put together to try and get investment on a topiary and For a Modern Ocean, and in his sizzle reels, he must have gotten the okay from these guys, but like it says executive produced by Steven Soderbergh and David Fincher, as if they have any awareness or involvement in anything this man does. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's fascinating because I lost track of him, and to dig back into it, it's like, oh my god, like what is with this guy? And I think that's always been the draw, because he's so bizarre and elusive and enigmatic, and so that I couldn't get away from him. He's an obvious choice.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I really like that one, and I share the same sentiments. But as far as for me, I was thinking about the director Ben Zeitlin.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
The director of Beasts of the Southern Wild. One of my favorite movies of the past decade, and he really like, he's done 2 movies now in his 10-year career. He did that one, and then he did the Peter Pan adaptation Wendy, which he worked on for 7 years, and it did not really pan out for him. It's not that bad of a movie, but it's also not very good. It's really slow. Have you seen that one by chance?
I haven't. It's on my list, which means it may never get watched, but my interest is still there, because that movie was so stunning. The Southern Wilds, the Beasts of the Southern Wild, I should say, and Wendy. Yeah, like he spent so much time working on it that it was kind of doomed to just die in obscurity, unless it was truly like the best thing ever, which I feel like it's obvious it isn't, which is why I've held off from actually watching it. Yeah,
it's definitely, it's not really that memorable, but
I don't want to destroy the magic.
Exactly. Yeah, he's so talented, and he does like scores too. It's actually the only other thing he's done within like the movie system for the past 2 years since Wendy was he did a score for one of his friends' movies, but other than that, he's disappeared off the face of the earth. He has nothing lined up. There's no articles about him online. He doesn't have a website. He hasn't been interviewed lately. He's just
no PR team.
Gone. Yeah, no PR team. He's just gone. So, I hope that he's just taking maybe an extended sabbatical, but it's been about 2 years now, over 2 years. So, yeah, I don't know. I wish he'd come back though, because I really, really like Beasts of the Southern Wild, and I think that there's more to mine from his sort of aesthetic of that sort of Caribbean, Louisiana bayou type feel that he gives everything, because he did that with Wendy too. He kind of adapted Wendy to that weird sort of oceanic bayou type setting, and so there's more there, I think.
Certainly, and I guess that ultimately is what I guess the question's all about. Who do you want to get more from that you haven't had a chance to really, wring to death yet? Like, I've had enough Christopher Nolan. Like his movies will just be given to me now forever, until he dies. But, I think about people like, what's his name? The director of A Tree of Life and like The Thin Red Line. It's like, how long that motherfucker made people wait? When you think of Terrence Malick, when you think about that, like he's even someone I considered for this, but then he has had a run of, you'd almost call it a prolific run from A Tree of Life onward. He has made so many random ass movies, so I couldn't pick him, but I like Ben Zeitlin. I agree with your sentiments as well, and all we can hope for is that on their way out, like Annapurna or A24 just does the right thing by one of these guys. I'm not sure, who I would rather, see the bone thrown to, but that's never been how Shane Carruth operates. And Ben Zeitlin is less controversial, but maybe he is afraid that the political sentiments of his target audience might make it difficult for him to make the kinds of movies he wants to, or even they probably can't capture the zeitgeist in the same way as that movie did back when it did. Because that was what, like 2008, 2009?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Totally different reality.
For sure.
Which I guess we're going to kind of dig into as we press forward. But I really appreciated this question, and it was fun to think about. But so still, shout out to my boy Peter Weir. Watch The Last Wave. Watch Gallipoli. Watch Picnic at Hanging Rock. Watch Master and Commander: The Far Side of the World, and you tell me that guy still couldn't hack it? Like, how was he? He wasn't picked to make a Marvel movie. He had no interest in that. He could have killed, even a Truman Show. Like, that's a Peter Weir movie as well. But that's my rant. I have more passion for him than Shane Carruth, so maybe I should have just gone with him. And this week the last 2 weeks were filled with stuff to watch. Just like I was literally champing at the bit over Memorial Day because I was like, I need the last bit of Netflix content I could ever care about, so that I could drop $20 a month from my my budget. And there was also stuff coming at us from Disney by way of Star Wars, and that was actually a little bit controversial because of what I understand from my research is DMs to the lead actress of the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. So we know who the dirtbags are. We know what their dirtbag logic is and what their priorities are. And is there really a genuine chilling effect where people aren't criticizing this because they're afraid of being called racist and being lumped in with them? Or is it kind of imagined? Would it genuinely happen?
I think there is, because there's so much baggage now with Star Wars. It seems like anything that comes out that is Star Wars branded that is not critically acclaimed, so basically anything but The Mandalorian, always has this weird baggage attached to it, where whenever people criticize it, immediately the people who like it, their assumption is oh, you didn't like it because of the race of such and such a character or whatever. And even when the people who criticize it lay out kind of their reasons why, and I think that's, I don't know, there's just a lot of, ever since The Last Jedi, basically, there has been so much baggage with saying that you don't like something in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, it did get really fucked up in America, and we're still dealing with it. And the consequence is more Star Wars TV shows, because there was so much division over The Last Jedi, and then the corporate reaction to The Last Jedi was to just salt the earth and piss on it and walk away from The Last Jedi, because that's just how much of a fuck up it was determined to be by the bean counters. And sorry, I'm getting gassed out by my assistant today. He's sleeping and he's farting some terrible farts. But I don't know. I watched, not to make this a review of Obi-Wan Kenobi, but this is just a general comment. If there's any show that is lame, or has any business being lame, it's not a Star Wars show. The Mandalorian walked a tightrope of being exciting, interesting, and artistic in its as much as it can be. It was actually eminently entertaining first and foremost. This show relies on what it relies on, and unfortunately, that means that a lot of these characters are just cardboard. And there's only so much an actor can do for that. And I'm not going to blame any actor in any Star Wars production for having a shitty performance. because the writing from Lucas onward has been pretty sus on occasion, and this may or may not be one of those instances. But it's.
I would say I've seen all the episodes that are out now, and honestly, I was going to talk about this anyways. I think that the show is really bad, like really bad, and I think it mostly comes down to the director Deborah Chow, because it seems like that's where all the sort of terribleness is stemming from, where the show is just very oddly paced, and there's shots in the show that you're like, oh, that's weird that they chose that take. Like, have you seen by chance the clip that's going around everywhere where Princess Leia's running from the bounty hunters and the one gets stopped by like a tree branch?
Yeah. There's just, and you can even see this shit in the episodes directed by what's-her-face, by Bryce Dallas Howard, of other Star Wars shows, where there's just this weird ticky-tackiness to it. Yeah, they're not solid in the way that you would expect a modern franchise to be. Like, Halo had this problem, but I just shrug it off because it's fucking Halo. Like, we're getting something at all. Are you kidding me? Like, I could tear so much apart about the delivery and realization of certain concepts, but to just not be able to get like basic like execution right, to where it's actually satisfying to watch, is something they don't even think about. It's just move on to the next thing throughout. Yeah,
it's very like they put all this stuff in the show, it seems like, with the hope that people won't notice it, or with the hope that people won't be like, like, oh, that doesn't quite make sense. Like, in the last one was the big like Darth Vader reveal moment, and first of all, that was completely bungled. Like, I don't know how you fuck up a reveal of Darth Vader, and his like appearance was so like I don't know, it was off. There was something off to it. And then there's like a fire that starts in front of him. Did you see that? And he just decides to stop chasing after Obi-Wan because there's like a 20-foot wide fire in front of him that he could clearly just walk around.
Yeah, it's like he's cyborg legs. It's like, what is he fucking worried about? Like, if his whole getup isn't fireproof, then what is the point? You know what I mean? After nearly melting on lava land, you're telling me that suit isn't impervious to, like, even like the center of the fucking earth? Like, no, like, shut up. Like, this makes no sense. And that is what not appreciating the source material, does to a franchise in the hands of hacks, who, you kind of see this with like modern Star Trek shows to an extent, where it's like the fact that you are resisting, accepting my content, my version of this thing, it is reflective of you, the audience, that you don't accept it. They make it I can't even think of the right word for it, but it's like, it's a character flaw not to like the current thing, is basically what it boils down to. And it's been going on since the fucking, Lady Ghostbusters movie. And whenever it gets trotted out, it's entirely defanged as a cultural argument, because the company then turns around and just airbrushes every black character and like wrong Asian character, like non-Chinese person, gets the gay out of it. They totally adjust the product for a specific audience in a way that would never be tolerated for any reason to Western audiences. And that little issue is kind of where I end on it. Like, it's just cheap publicity these days to just point out that racists are on the internet. It's like, like the Trump era does this to society. We're all kind of programmed to this kind of culture war mentality, but I'm not gonna get my dander up over a show that isn't very good, or like, even if it was really good, it's just a show. And if that's ultimately all it is to you, that's fine. But if the success of the show is culturally important to you, the weird religious aspect to it, then we could get lost in the weeds all night just on this particular little news point.
Yeah, I guess the last thing that I kind of wanted to say on it was I do agree with you, and the thing though that I kind of would like to have back is just the ability to say that I don't like something and give my reasons why, and for it not to be like misunderstood, or not even misunderstood, but just for somebody to be like, you don't like my favorite media conglomerate, so fuck you, racist, that type of thing. And it's just it's getting very old in this time of the way that a lot of movie websites work nowadays is people get paid per article. Yeah. And it's not much. It's usually like between $20 and $25. And that's why we get all of these shitty articles about stuff like this, and articles like the ending of such and such explained, or like 5 reasons why you need to watch such and such before this movie comes out. And so, we get a lot of pretty out there theories about why people think things are the way they are just because they need to make $25 quick from a movie website.
Yeah, and then it's that whole industry of just reaching for the stars to try and rationalize things that should just be taken at face value often. It's like, no, this person just sucks as a filmmaker. Why are you trying to salvage it with headcanon? It's like they're writing fan fiction in the comments, basically. And your mileage may vary, and I just don't have time for it anymore. And life is too short, and I'd much rather just, I was intrigued, I was pulled in. But as soon as little baby Leia showed up, I just got annoyed, and we'll save that for another time. We do have to move on to some sad news. Our boy, the bad guy, Ray Liotta, died while in production on a movie in the Dominican Republic. So, just want to say, pour one out for the bad guy. Which of his, decades-long career of film roles is the one that you're going to treasure the most?
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and I kind of went a little weirder with this one. And what I really think of him, I mean, the obvious one's Goodfellas, and that's the one a lot of people will say. But the one I think of, the one that kind of has resonance with myself growing up, was Tommy Vercetti from Grand Theft Auto Vice City.
Fuck yeah, dude, that's awesome.
It's honestly, it was sort of one of his late career iconic roles, and the voice is iconic. I can hear it in my head now, and I can see like Tommy Vercetti's PS2 character model like flapping his lips. But he was so great in that, and his career is kind of populated by bad guys and cop roles. That's kind of the thing that I noticed while I was looking at his filmography, and it was kind of a nice change of pace for him to be kind of this 1980s sort of Scarface analog, I guess.
Yeah, and I never played Vice City, but I'm just imagining, like his voice acting in that, and just the narration, and I don't know, the story of Rockstar and like in that era of Grand Theft Auto in particular is just so fascinating, because the amount of those guys that they grabbed up like Liotta to do voice acting in their games is insane. You can't imagine any video game being able to afford them at any price. Like just having like Sam Jackson show up, like in San Andreas, he plays a corrupt cop, I think. Yeah, if I remember correctly. Yeah, but I've never played Vice City, and now I want to. I did not realize that he was the voice actor in that.
Yeah, he's really, really good in that. And did you have one?
Mine, like it. Without just being lame and saying Goodfellas, it's because I've seen that performance the most. Mm-hmm. It's the only like one I can like even think of. When I think of Ray Liotta, I just think of Henry Hill, and I can't get away from that. Like everyone talks about Field of Dreams, but that movie's whatever, dude. I don't know. Yeah. You have to be a boomer to like that movie, and I'm not a boomer. But yeah, like I was spitballing a few around, but none of them stuck. You know, like
Sure.
like I can't say Narc because I didn't really care. Narc is a good movie, but he's done so many other things, but none of them. Yeah, like, I guess understated. I guess I would say Killing Them Softly. You know, his like that was nice, like late stage Liotta. You know, reliable, because it definitely was not the fucking Sopranos prequel movie that he was in. That was wacko.
Yeah, he oftentimes, especially in his later career, he was in a lot of stuff, but he was oftentimes kind of just adequate. He was very good at what he did, and he did it well, but you know, you didn't really notice it a lot of times. And rest in peace. And I think there are worse ways to go. I think dying in your sleep while you're in the Dominican Republic, probably staying at a resort,
exactly.
Filming a movie.
Yeah,
there's definitely worse ways to go.
Like, if any man deserved to die, you know, with his last night on Earth being completely comped, you know, by some production studio, like, then it's this man. You know what I mean? He earned that shit. He deserved to die in the trailer. You know, not to be too crude or morbid about it. But, yeah, we love you. We'll miss you. You know, thoughts and prayers. Moving on to, you know, yeah, we only saw, I guess, one of these movies in theaters. We're saving one movie you saw from theaters for another time when I can see it. Because, yeah, so I guess we're just going to focus on streaming and then our main events for the week. But you got to get caught up on the part 1 of the finale season of Better Call Saul. And what is the story? Because I've watched maybe 15 minutes of this show. So,
yeah, same. Before, if you would have asked me that about 6 months ago, I would have said the same thing. And this show, my wife and I have been kind of using it as our show that we watch when there's nothing else to watch show. And we've very slowly been making our way through the entire show, and we finally caught up. We actually just happened to catch up right as the finale of part 1 premiered the same week. And so I got to see the finale of part 1 shortly after it actually debuted on TV. So I'm all caught up now, and yeah, I mean, it's such a good show, and it's very different than Breaking Bad. It's much more slow. The stakes aren't as high, but it really sneaks up on you. It's like, it's the show that while you're watching it, you're thinking, oh, this is pretty good. You know, this is decent. But then when you think about it after the fact, you think about all...
Hell yeah, brother. No, you got me convinced. I'm here for it now. Now that because I guess that's always the thing I've grappled with. It's hard to commit unless it's like undeniable. And I guess I got burned out on Breaking Bad. I watched El Camino, and I just thought the last thing I want to see is more stuff from this world. You know, because it's so fucking sad. It stopped being funny about halfway through. You know what I mean? But I will definitely give this a shot now that I know that the whole journey is worth it when it gets down to brass tacks.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's, for anybody that doesn't know, the entire thing except for this first half of the 6th season, it's all on Netflix, and that's how we watched it. And it's definitely a better binging show, I think, than watching week to week and having a year between each season.
Okay.
I think it works a lot more cohesively as a binging show than if I were to have watched the whole thing as it aired. And so I would definitely recommend watching it that way.
God. Okay. Like, I know we already have a party question for this show, but I call dibs on the next one because something just occurred to me.
Okay.
But I'll save it for that. So, Better Call Saul. Get on that shit. It's on Netflix. Speaking of fucking Netflix, they're flailing. They're dying. Everything is going wrong for them as a company. What's that? Who is there? A rider approaching in the distance? It is. It's fucking Stranger Things season 4. How else are they going to get some of those subscriptions back in Peru that they've been losing? They got to do something. They need a hit. And I guess that's how I'm setting it up. But is this season really succeeding? after the 7 episodes that they've given us.
Yeah, I think, Stranger Things has always been good popcorn TV, and I think that what is kind of what it remains. I don't think it's particularly good. It's like it's fun to watch. It's got the nostalgia porn in it, and that's, I mean, a lot of times that's really all it has going for it. I will say I do enjoy this season a lot more than the mall season.
Yeah.
I did not like that, like the whole mall like subplot of last season, and I like where they're going with it this season. With it's definitely more adult oriented horror. There's more horror this season, and the bad guy's basically Freddy Krueger mixed with Pinhead.
Exactly.
And,
yeah. Well, and he's actually a humanoid, and he's not just a blob.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
what about you?
See, that is also kind of where I'm at with it. Like, there's parts of it where I'm just like, fuck yeah, dog. I am here for it. I like where you're going with it. I like that it's not just cutie pie, cutie kid bullshit until it is just cutie pie, cutie kid bullshit. And being, I don't know, like the twee nostalgia bullshit just doesn't work for me after a while. And yeah, last season went over fucking bored with it, and this one is so much more focused on the weird kinds of stories they can tell. And I guess that is the one thing that I did enjoy from this, is that each segment of its cast is given a totally different kind of movie to be in, but it's all wrapped around the same core. But yeah, this isn't like they aren't reinventing the wheel here. This is pretty basic Skinner box. Ooh, I remember that kind of bullshit. And now that they have 3 seasons of show to work with, they can make it, ooh, that's who this is, and ooh, that's what this guy was doing, But I really like the parts of like the Russian prison world that Hopper's living in, but there's a lot of really tedious storylines in this. None of them are really spared.
I really don't vibe with the stuff they're doing with 11 this season. I think it's all kind of a retread of stuff they've done before. Like, I'm so sick of seeing Matthew Modine and the guy from Alien. Like, I'm just so sick of
Paul Reiser. Yeah,
Paul Reiser, and it's just that did not work for me at all. And I think that's kind of often the case with Stranger Things, is the B plots don't really work for me, but the main stuff involving the kids and the bad guy, that works for me. And just not so much the B plots. I mean, they're literally B plots in both name and substance. Like, they are significantly worse than the main plot, I think.
They're kind of all treading water, and they're only vaguely advancing anything. And it's not until you actually get some of these people in the same room together that anything moves at all. But yeah, like it got a little annoying, to me, to find out that, I don't know, what makes cosmic horror work is ambiguity, and you always run the risk of things breaking down if you're too involved in your explanations, or your explanations are just not as fun as the vagueness you were operating with. This is kind of the Lost problem, I guess. But because let's just throw up some spoiler warnings. If you care about not knowing something, just watch this fucking show and then return here to hear what we have to say, I guess. But the idea that all these monsters and weird manifestations that we've been experiencing is just another psychic kid breaking the universe apart. It's just Akira, I guess, which has always been what you reduce Stranger Things down to. It's just Steven Spielberg does Akira in the 80s, and sets it in, Heartland America. That's basically what Stranger Things is. Which is a very hard show to pitch. Obviously, it took him so long, but I just don't know if I enjoy what I've experienced over the last 3 seasons as much as I did, knowing that it wasn't something unknowable and horrible. You know, it's just weird, fucked up kid. Yet another weird, fucked up kid. You know, basically existing throughout all time and space, being a Freddy Krueger type nightmare monster. So that
the show is it's very derivative, and it's at its best when it kind of is able to be weird and kind of do stuff that isn't so like trite, because I would say probably my favorite scene of this entire first half of this season was when they go to Dustin's like girlfriend's house, and there's all those weird kids running around, and they're like one of them's dressed up like an Indian, and the others are like making a movie, and I think those were like the best scenes of the entire season. Yeah,
there's the Cornelius is just this savage child, literally ripping the electricity, like box apart. Yeah, that little Wes Anderson kid with his camera making a Super 8 movie is also my favorite character in this show. Period. Now, I want to know what the fuck that family has been up to this whole time. Yeah, you know, the whole '80s internet thing and hacking, over a computer, like a phone line, like all that shit. It was just like they're doing war games, they're doing all the things that they love, but I'm reaching my point where I just don't care as much as I used to. But I'll need to watch this with Angie because I'm an asshole and I watched it by myself because I just couldn't wait for her.
Did you? Well, let me ask you this: you had mentioned getting her to Netflix soon, and do you think that is something? Is this something you're gonna either keep Netflix for or resubscribe for when the second half drops in July?
It's gonna drop in July. Maybe I should keep my panties on for a couple months because I am gonna want to know how it all shakes out, I suppose. But I'm just a lot less interested now that it's not some unknowable horror behind everything. It's it's just another Stephen King monster. Basically, it's a kid that got molested at a government mind expansion facility. That's the best way to describe it, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't know. This season just makes me wish that they had just stolen more shit from what's it called? That's that Cosmos Pasmados movie. The first one he did about the Black Rainbow. Is that what it was called?
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, because the Stranger Things, while long in gestation, visually owes a lot and conceptually owes a lot to a great deal of things. But I always felt that, like, psychically, they absorbed some of the same shit that he was operating on. Because they're about kind of the same thing. Like a weird girl that's literally born, from her mother ingesting hallucinogens and then opening up portals to other dimensions. Like that, living in a facility kept there by a creepy guy who says he's her father. Like the similarities were just too numerous.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I guess I just stand that movie too much to not be able to hold back my anger that they stood on the shoulders of giants and they're not doing anything nearly as cool as they could be. They have night gaunts in this, Matt, which is Lovecraftian as fuck. Those little bat things with like the scorpion tails that like leech suck blood. Yeah, those are fucking night gaunts. Like I'm never gonna get. What I really want is some badass to do a 12-hour long adaptation of Providence, that Alan Moore, the Lovecraft comic. That's really what I want, but I'm not going to get that. But I have night gaunts and Stranger Things, so in the end, everything is worth it.
Yeah.
Anything? Yeah, you're kind of exhausted on this one. You have nothing else to say about Stranger Things?
Yeah, not really. I mean, it's the same old. I do think that the episodes this season are getting a little unwieldy, and oh my god,
are you ready for like a 2.5 hour long fucking episode?
Yeah, that's what the word is. The word is that because there's only 2 left, and the word on the street is that the second to the last one is 2 hours, and the last episode's 2.5. So you have 4.5 more hours of the show spread out over 2 episodes. So
God, can you imagine? And so I guess this, to kind of have something interesting to talk about, is this does this look like as expensive as a show as it's purported to be? Like, how much was it? How many hundreds of millions of dollars did this cost? It doesn't seem like they've spent it yet, but at the same time, they've done a good job of not being chintzy too much.
You're right. Yeah. You're definitely right. It doesn't look like a typical Netflix show. It doesn't have that cheapness to it. And if somebody, if I never knew what this show was and somebody told me it was made by HBO, I probably would have believed him. And
can you imagine if HBO had been behind this?
Yeah, that'd be nuts.
That'd be nuts.
There's it's a lot of it looks really good. I mean, I don't think that it quite justifies the price, but I mean, the Duffer Brothers at this point kind of have carte blanche to do whatever they want, and no one's going to tell them no, and they're going to tell Netflix that they need, $30 million an episode or whatever it is.
Does Netflix own these boys for life? Or are they going to be free agents once the show is done?
If Netflix doesn't grab them up, they would be so stupid not to. Like they need to sign them up. At least sign them up for like a first look deal, because they're responsible for so much of the success of Netflix. Like
because as much as Fincher was their boy, Mindhunter didn't take off as a hit. And House of Cards is completely poisoned forever now.
Yes.
And so normally I would be like, no, you got to get your man on lock. But the real success for Netflix is in shows. And just getting some auteur's vanity dream project and giving them as much money as possible to do it doesn't really guarantee you much. So what? You have The Irishman in your library, Netflix. Good for you. Who's gonna commit 3.5 hours to watching it? Nobody. They're gonna watch the shit that costs you nothing, and that you're gonna have reunion shows for until the end of time because those make endless money. So you're not gonna get more out of Stranger Things after this, unless they convince them to do the unthinkable. The forward-thinking thing to do would be to say 10 years. Wait literally 10 years and Twin Peaks this and come back to all these youngins grown up. Don't recast it. Maintain the same cast, but just make everyone age physically 10 years and then come back to it. But then the next question is Netflix still the company they are 10 years from now? Do they still exist? Have they been absorbed by the Borg of Disney or Apple, or Elon Musk's weird transhumanist collective, like whatever it's gonna be?
Yeah, I would think that would be cool. I mean, they've already tried it once with, I don't know if you remember, I can't even remember if it was last season or season 2, but when they had that weird subplot with those people who had superpowers in Chicago, and that was meant to be like a under the table pilot for a spin-off. Do you remember that?
That was in Stranger Things?
Yeah, there was like the Indian woman, and it was just kind of like a splinter group of the governmental program that was based out of Chicago. And yeah, that was like an under the table pilot, and then people hated it so much that they just abandoned that completely. That
Lost
storyline.
Sister. I completely forgot about this.
Yeah.
This is from the second season.
It sucked. It was so pointless and
oh my god! No wonder I forgot about it. That's lame.
Yeah, they were
okay.
They were really, really trying to build out the universe in that season, and it did not work out. People did not want that.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, if it just seems like 80s heroes, Like they could have done better than that, right? Like you have to give us better than some, like I guess because like what was Stranger Things? What was its closest like predecessor? Like who can we really say is in the genetic tissue of this show, apart from all the obvious influences that they've slapped together? But like what show truly represents everything that it does as far as appeal? Is it Buffy the Vampire Slayer, in pop culture synergy? I guess that did it for the now, but since we live in post-historical world now, we're just craving the past that we don't have because our reality is so bizarre. I don't know. There's a lot of weird things to think about with Stranger Things, but who knows how necessary any of it will be. Because, I'm sorry, but I just have the memory of everything that went wrong with Game of Thrones and what that last season was like.
Yeah.
And I will say I'm not triggered yet by Stranger Things, but I still am not as invested in the experience of the moment of watching the end like I did for that show. Even though I knew I was watching, this thing like wither away and die, slowly in front of me. Like the Stranger Things, it's just going to be irrelevant very soon, basically. July. Whenever the end of the show finally comes out.
Well, they're going to do a 5th season, and that's the
end.
So.
No! I thought this was the end. I wanted this to be the end.
No, this isn't.
God damn.
They've said, I think it's always been a 5-season plan, I believe, but there will be one more in probably like 4 more years.
Well, and that's what I mean. Like, age them up, because I remember when the show first came out, the Duffer Brothers were like, hey, our thought is we do the first season with them really young here, and season 2 is going to be like in the 90s. It's going to be like 10, 15 years in the future. And people hated that idea because then they were going to lose the kids. And nobody likes the it flash forward, basically, is the thought. And so the Duffer Brothers are very malleable creatively if these kinds of like stories are true, because they kind of just go with what the audience demands, based on that. And they do not care if something doesn't work. They will jettison it, even if it's like on the body, as they deliver the product. It's just like, what if they could edit out that? As much as I have forgotten about it, they might as well have not had it in the show. That subplot in Chicago. So
yeah, you could totally just snip that. I mean, the only thing that makes it hard to remove from the show is that was kind of the 11 storyline that season. Mm-hmm. So, or in part was so. But yeah, that could totally work. And I don't know, maybe that's you were saying about the Duffer Brothers being very malleable. Maybe that's something that more directors should be. I mean, maybe it's something to aspire for, because it's a lot better than being like, someone like Ryan Johnson or something who hates hates the fans, the few fans that he has, and hates the people that don't like him even more. He's so combative about everything.
I didn't realize he was such a goon. I still really do, enjoy and champion. I even liked like his early work, and I even liked Knives Out for what it was. Knives Out was good. It's like he just needs to chill the fuck out. Eventually you're just like, it's just mental masturbation for yourself to just constantly just show up with your keyboard out on your smartphone, blasting away, because that's what's getting you off that day. Speaking of, I guess getting off, these were supposed to be 2 limited series, Under the Banner of Heaven and We Own This City. They both came to an end. I did not finish Under the Banner of Heaven. I did finish We Own This City. Should I finish Under the Banner of Heaven?
Yeah, I think so. It was really good. I thought the entire show was really decent all the way through, and it's kind of a fascinating story about how this guy loses his faith because of the church is so involved with the crimes that he's investigating, this detective. And fascinating story. And if you have any sort of interest in sort of the machinations of the Mormon faith, like if you're somebody who doesn't know a lot about it, this show gives you a really, really good surface level look at sort of Mormonism and sort of some of the wacky shit that they believe. And
do the recreations make an appearance throughout the rest of the show?
What's that?
The recreations of Mormon history.
They do.
They do.
Yeah,
okay.
They go through. They go all throughout the show, and they actually, as the show kind of comes to its end, they become a little bit more sensical, or you understand why they're even there in the first place.
Okay. Right.
They kind of tie in with the ending of the show.
Because that was always the appeal of the book, was that the through line of the historical record to those events was just so out in front that that was my understanding, at any rate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it makes a lot more sense towards the end. And Andrew Garfield was great. Gil Birmingham, the other sort of lead, I guess. He's pretty much the second lead of this show. They play really well off each other.
Okay, and that's his partner, right? Andrew Garfield's character? Yeah.
Yep. And I really liked the rapport that they had. And yeah, it was. How far behind are you by chance?
I think I made it to episode 4.
Okay, so I want to call out one scene in particular. I think it's either in 5 or 6, where Alan Lafferty, the husband of Brenda, the woman who was murdered, goes in a flashback. He goes and meets with Brenda's father, and they're sitting at like a dining room table, and they're sort of trying to like intimidate each other, basically, because he wants to go and move to the sticks with her. And her dad's like, no. And it's so awesome, this scene, because her dad pulls out like a Widman's box of chocolates.
What the fuck? Okay.
With like all of the different types of chocolates, and he like slowly forces Alan to eat a like cherry cordial because it has caffeine in it, and like Mormons aren't supposed to eat caffeine.
That's right. That's funny.
It's such an amazing scene. It's very, very well done, and I can't remember the actor's name who plays Brenda's father, but very, very good at being intimidating. And great show. I mean, watch it. And I think I actually liked it probably better than We Own This City overall, but I like both of them to an extent.
Yeah.
But what did you think of We Own the City?
It kind of did just boil down to, it's just a lesser object from for what it set out to be, what it was going to be able to be, and it was never fair to compare this to The Wire. We were only getting one bite at this apple, and the story is an interesting one. It's like read in the Baltimore Sun, all these years later, to go back and look at the coverage of the real events, but it just gets so lost in the Twitter sphere, mindscape, that you realize, this isn't the peerless modern Shakespearean street writers that we thought we were working with. These are the bloated, Twitter addicted old men who have still carry enough weight with people to get something like this made, because parts of it work really fucking well. Like anytime John Berthnall is just fucking Wayne Jenkins, motherfucker, Wayne Jenkins Day, just like going off on his bullshit. The show is alive. Yeah, exactly. Just drinking Mike's Hard Lemonade on the way to the fucking station house. No fucks given. That kind of shit. Like when you realize that, that's real. That's who this guy was. It kind of becomes Baltimore's version of what do you call, what was that? The Wolf of Wall Street. Like this is the Baltimore version of Wolf of Wall Street, or at least it could have been. It could have been a real fucking good time, but they got to be socially conscious. They got to be, pointing out, how this kind of corruption, feeds and maintains the awfulness of American life, especially in a city like Baltimore. But yeah, like my feelings are mixed because there's it's very intellectual and it could be engaging until it was just fall on its face dumb and obvious, and that's where it would lose me, unfortunately. But there just wasn't enough time to get to know any of this cast of characters, any of these dirtbags, and that's what made The Wire so memorable. Is you had the time to actually grow to care. And right off from Front Street, basically in that opening scene, in the clip right there, their goal is to make you hate these fucking guys. For good reason, because they were monsters. But yeah, it just didn't wind up being as entertaining and stimulating as it probably should have been, because half the time I just felt like they were holding my hand when they don't have to. I know what they care about. I've seen it on Twitter for the last 10 years. The AO Despair is one of the most cringeworthy, and that's David Simon. That is his Twitter handle, is capital A lowercase O Despair. That is who we're fucking dealing with, people. This man is a savage, and at least he used to be. Now I just feel sad for him. And what did you think of We Own This City after hearing my little rants about it?
No, I feel kind of the same way. I mean, it's everything having to do with the civil rights attorney. I just did not give a fuck about.
Glazed over eyes every time.
Yeah, it was just those were the scenes in the show where they were like, okay, we need to cram all of this messaging in here, and it was. You kind of wonder what the show would be like without that character, and I think it would be a lot more focused, and because she wasn't really that great of a character in the first place. You didn't really know anything about her. She just kind of was going from person to person asking them about the various corruption and stuff like that, and the
FBI officers were the more interesting pair. And you could have given them more screen time, given all the dirtbags more screen time, given some actual people, human beings, they would get scenes. The Baltimore milieu would get they'd get 30 seconds for Slim Charles to make a cameo, and that's it. And I don't think he pops up again on the show ever again. God, it's seeing some of those that guy that the Kennard, I think is his name, the kid that steals cars from The Wire. The fact that he's in this fucking show playing the character he's playing is just hilarious. But there just wasn't enough just regular folk. It lost its authenticity a bit. And it just became a little too staid. And I don't know, they think they're so charming with their lo-fi aesthetic to their graphics and their title work. And it's not cool anymore, guys. We have 4K. We could barely watch The Wire because of how committed you were to standard definition. So fuck you, David Simon.
Yeah, I really kind of got tired of the police report date things that would pop up. Yeah, the typing and then it would say the date, and it was made to look like a police report. That really didn't work for me, but
because the whole point of The Wire, at least creatively for them, was from the pilot on, they didn't do any flashbacks. It's just forward, so these guys didn't have a lot of artful skill when it came to writing a Russian puzzle box of a crime corruption story. I think that maybe is what it boils down to. Their dinosaur nature is revealed. They don't got the juice anymore.
Yes, I would agree with that. Yeah, David Simon is kind of a old man yells at clouds. He's kind of at that point in his life now.
Yeah,
but
you kind of boiled it down much more succinctly than I ever could. So that's the banner under the banner of heaven. We Own This City. I'm gonna have to get on, and finish that because I need to figure out how it all comes together. And We Own This City is worth it if you're a completionist, but don't get too hyped. But there are some things to be hyped about. We have a couple mentionables that we'll briefly touch on. I was, rooting around for a story because I was desperate for one at the last week. On Wednesday. This is a town of 55,000 people, but nothing happens. except when something happens, and I'm not the guy who writes about it. So I was like, maybe I can find something by a North Dakota author, just write a review or get an interview, that kind of thing. And I happened upon a book called Best.Movie.Year.Ever. Have you heard of this book?
Yeah, vaguely. Who's the author?
The author is Brian Rafferty, who he's written for a whole schmear of places, all over the place. But it's a fascinating, collection of essays that just goes like week by week into the year 1999, and tells you the stories of it gives you when this was happening, like when this movie was being worked on and this person was having a meltdown, David O. Russell and George Clooney are having a fist fight. Meanwhile, something's happening with The Shining, not The Shining, Eyes Wide Shut. So each of the chapters will often pair certain movies together for certain reasons. And it gets very, very, I guess beyond interesting. It's, oh my God. Sorry. I live in a house with a toddler and now a puppy, and guess who shit on the floor?
The dog?
No, the child did.
The
child did it. But back to Best.Movie.Year.Ever. If you're a movie nerd, you forget half of the movies that came out during that year. There's enough time to talk about Christopher Nolan's movie Following, because that's when he made it, and he couldn't get it into Sundance, so he was at the Slam Dance Festival in '99. So that's why he's a footnote in the story. But seeing how Election was being made, around the same time as Wes Anderson's movie. What was that one called? Rushmore. Rushmore, right?
Royal Tenenbaums, 1999, you said?
Yeah. I guess because they were writing about Rushmore. That Rushmore. Yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah, Rushmore. Okay.
That Rushmore and oh my God. I'm so sorry, people, but that's life in the big city. But this book is worth reading if you happen upon it. It's easy to read, especially if you like movies. But reading the war stories that David Fincher went through to make Fight Club, he tells a lot of them in his director's commentaries. At least on that DVD set, it's worth listening to, especially the one he does with his actors, where they're high off their brains and drunk and shitting on the people who love the movie, that kind of thing. But the stories involved about just the inner turmoil within the studio when they realized what they had fucking paid for. So many of them wanted to kill the movie. And what is shocking is how many movies almost died in production during this year. Stanley Kubrick could have died sooner. Eyes Wide Shut would have been a disaster. I'm just looking at what they have on the cover there, the success of the Blair Witch and the Matrix, all of how those were able to happen at all. It's the balance between studio involvement and a lack thereof of it, and then what that does with the success of a project is kind of fascinating. So worth reading if you've got nothing else going on. And I read that over Memorial Day.
So I'm just kind of curious, the best movie year ever, I know that's kind of a sentiment a lot of people have about 1999, and does the book sort of answer that thesis? Does it say, this year was the best ever because this?
Yeah.
Or whatever?
Yeah,
okay.
He kind of refines the point, because it's just critical acclaim doesn't mean much. Everybody at the time hated The Phantom Menace, but The Phantom Menace was hugely popular, and obviously continues to be hugely popular for the generation that saw it, because now we're using it as a starting point for the content that Star Wars is today. We're getting Obi-Wan Kenobi as a show, even though he doesn't bring that up. That's my addition to it. But what made that year the year it was, quite a bit was movies that expanded our minds or our consciousness, or what we could conceive to be possible within pop culture itself. And starting with the found footage, success, the original the prototypical modern found footage horror movie is Blair Witch Project, and how that came together, with the involvement of so few people, is insane, and it's how its success is crafted was entirely due to the year that it came out in. And I guess that's what it boiled down to. A lot of these movies, succeeded or failed because of the year that they came out in, but whether they became cult hits like Fight Club, they still were they were so like latched onto by later movie viewers and later generations of movie watchers, was that they were so prescient and they nailed something and were aware of something that we weren't maybe ready to consider. So whether we were ready for it and a movie succeeded at the time, like even The Mummy gets a huge fucking section, which is surprising, because the story behind that is also pretty fucking weird and wild when you consider what it could have been. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I need to read that, because that is such like a often said thing about 1999.
He actually gets down to the guts of the issue and answers why does this resonate? Well, this is fucking why. This is why this movie hit. This is why it's still relevant to us now. And this is why, like, this year, the strength of the year. There's an entire chapter, dude, just about black people movies.
Okay.
Because 99 was a big year for black people movies. Which was news to me. Like,
what was the big one?
The Best Man.
The Best Man. I don't even know what that is.
It's this movie about, it's a precursor to like Women's Weekend. But it's just a bunch of black dudes getting together and being real with each other, and shit getting spicy because, they maybe have slept with someone's wife or maybe not, that kind of thing. But,
sure.
Yeah. But it's like a bachelor party, a black bachelor party with drama. It's a Taye Diggs movie, I believe.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up. How do you remember offhand how long it was? How many pages?
It's about 400 pages, maybe a little under.
Okay.
Maybe, yeah, it's pretty thick, but not too thick. And like I said, easy read.
Yeah.
But you went shopping online, I see. And and it's certified fucking Kino, because it's from Kino Lorber. For a few dollars more. What can you tell us about this release? What is why is this now in your collection?
Yeah, so this came out this past week, and it's their 4K Blu-ray for a few dollars more, and they've been doing all three of the movies in that trilogy. I think they started with Good, the Bad, and the Ugly just because it's the most popular, and then went back to the first one, and then they did this one last, and so they're all out cuts.
Now. They're all out. Okay, because that is some shelf porn right there. But I can imagine, it's so beautiful and immaculately, put to disc for our enjoyment.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, Kino Lorber is one of those companies that really cares about film restoration. They're kind of in that upper echelon of physical media producers like Criterion and Arrow Video and Vinegar Syndrome, and this is like no different. It looks amazing. I watched it two or three nights ago, and I think like the hallmark of a well restored movie is if you can get the color grading right. Because a lot of times with more recent movies, or even movies that are maybe like 20 years old that they decide to do a remaster of, they just slap a color filter on it and they're just like, whatever, it looks cool. Like the have you heard about the infamous Lord of the Rings blue filter? Do you know about that?
I do not.
Yeah, there's I think it was the first time that the Lord of the Rings was released on Blu-ray. They just like slapped a blue filter on the movie, and it looks so terrible. It looks like it looks so, especially the scenes where when they're climbing in the mountains and Frodo drops the ring in the snow,
and all that white is just gross.
Yeah, it's all.
What were they thinking?
Yeah, it's really bad, and that happens all too often these days. And it's nice to have a company like this where they really care about it, and it just, the blacks look so good and so deep, and everything looks as it should have. If you went to the movie in the theaters back when it first came out, this is, I'm sure, what it looked like. This is the closest you're going to get to that experience, to seeing it on film. And the special features, I haven't watched them yet, but there is a whole disc's worth of special features, because they're a lot like Criterion in that way too, where they just load it up. They load it up with special features.
They care. That's good to know.
They really, really care. And yeah, I mean, I don't really need to speak much about the movie itself. This is one of my favorite movies ever, and I'm one of those weird people who likes this one better than The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
But what about What's About to Happen in the West?
I don't know. I think I would say, I mean, if you're looking at this trilogy and then that movie, I would say I like this one the most, and then probably Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and then probably Once Upon a Time in the West, okay. And then Fistful of Dollars is probably my least favorite, because it's definitely a little more low budget. It's a little more bare bones, and but yeah, I love this one. This one is so good, and
the cover art looks really pimp too.
Yeah, it's awesome. They're really good for all of them, but. Yeah, I mean, I don't need to speak much more about it. I would just say go and get it, go and buy it. I think it wasn't much. It was, I think, $25. I want to say
that's reasonable.
Yeah, for a 4K Blu-ray. So, yeah, highly recommended.
Hell yeah, brother! And there you go. So moving on now to our double feature, double header main event. We are going to go hard. And just go with the movie that is going to save the American way as we know it. Top Gun Maverick. It has arrived. It is fucking just laying pipe to the box office right now. Yeah. But, it is an imperfect vessel. But it is, at the same time, the closest thing that this modern generation will ever get to an 80s movie ever again. Full stop. Like, the fact that the movie just right off the gate is just like, you know what? What we're going to do is we are going to just go pedal to the metal, Kenny Loggins, fucking Highway to the Danger Zone, no fucking around crew, here we are. This is what we're doing. It's happening. It's just fucking F-18s landing on aircraft carriers while the credits roll. You got the Don Simpson, Jerry Bruckheimer Productions logo flying across the scene like the man hasn't been dead for 20 years. No, he is risen. Tony Scott is alive. And they ghost produced and literally ghost directed this movie. I don't believe that Josh Kosinski had anything to do with this. This was a Tony Scott movie. This was ridiculous. But what did you think about it?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty great overall. I mean, so like, who expected this to happen?
Nobody. I don't know how you could have. I don't know how you could have.
Like, nobody knew that this was going to happen. Everybody underestimated it, both in quality and box office wise. And I think. Yeah, I mean, it's probably one of the better action blockbusters of the year, and probably, honestly, will be of the decade once everything's said and done.
They did things that I didn't think I would ever see.
Yeah, they took a really, honestly, terrible 80s movie,
yes,
and they took everything good out of it, all of the good stuff, like the characters, the setting, the music, and they left all of the bad stuff back with the first movie and turned it into a like straight line action movie that is, I think, I mean, you had mentioned kind of ghost directing, and I think that this Joseph Kosinski guy had less to do with it than, say, Christopher McQuarrie did.
I have more to say about that man. Keep going.
Yeah. He wrote on this movie, and I think has a lot, he produced it too, and has a lot to do with how it turned out. He basically he Mission Impossible-ized it.
Yes, exactly.
He took that franchise and he revitalized it, and people, Mission Impossible was on the downturn, and he made it respectable again. He made it sort of this generation's James Bond, and he's doing the same thing with this. And yeah, I really enjoyed it all overall. I have a few nits to pick with it, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, this is very much an imperfect film, but at the same time, unlike anything that you probably have seen in a long time, which is why I was so taken with it, and still am taken with it. Just giving it, like you said, the Mission Impossibilizing it. It's a hard thing to say, but all I could, they just took Maverick and were like, what if he was Ethan Hunt? This is a guy that restores a P-51 Mustang for fun. That's...
Yeah, he was such a dick in the first movie. I don't know if, I watched the
He was an asshole. He was awful.
Yeah, he was a dick, and there was very little, redeeming about him, and, they just did the complete, 180 with the character. I guess you could just say he grew up or something, but... Yeah. Yeah.
Now he's just a badass Chuck Yeager, basically. Literally pulling a Chuck Yeager in a spy plane. But the commitment to military realism is really what holds this fucking movie down. It's not just incomprehensible, editing of real jets and, fake jets from the 80s just slapped together, before we had, computer-aided video editing, whatever that old editing machine is called, that's what they edited Top Gun on. We need to remember that. That's the best they had to work with. But with this, it's just, you can have 17 cameras running for any given stunt and get enough footage to construct 4 movies out of it. Yeah, I'm sure they just went fucking ham making this, because there are some ridiculous aspects to it. The politics of who their target is very, very sticky. Who did you think that was supposed to be?
I don't know. I would say, based off the setting and just kind of the look, I guess the black plains with the darker. They had that weird symbol too on all of the enemy planes. It was a red circle with another red circle inside of it, and I would say either somewhere in Eastern Europe or Russia would be the obvious.
Okay, yeah. See, the answer, because to me, is Iran, because we're literally we're blowing up a some kind of enrichment facility, which is
uranium.
Yeah. And that the fact, and the 5th generational fighters that they use, Russia and Iran have a partnership. So they couldn't make this about Taiwan and China. They had to go with the weakest enemy that America has compared to the others. In the scheme of World War III, we're less concerned about Iran, except the fact that they can't have nuclear weapons. So they're all good guys. It's got a weird cast of supporting characters. John Hamm is there to just be an asshole, which is what his career has been post Don Draper. I feel like he's done this movie 5 times, just being the same hard-ass guy. But what did you think of the younger cast, of this hot, young, diverse squad of cross football playing beach buddies? What do we make of this modern generation?
Yeah, I thought they were decent. It's funny how there's 12 of them total, but only 5 of them get any sort of
screen time. Yeah, they name drop 6 dudes, and then they are just window dressing the rest of the movie.
Yeah. So, but they were fine. They were adequate, I thought. I actually thought the writing was a lot better than expected in a lot of the movie, when that initial scene when he goes to the bar for the first time and they all kind of show up one by one, and they're kind of all sort of ragging on each other and joking around. And I thought the writing was, in that scene in particular, was really whip smart and very fast, very jokey, and but Yeah, I liked all of them. I mean, I like that the dick guy, or the guy that the movie was setting up as the dick.
He's the Iceman of this movie. He's the real hero. He is based.
Yeah. Like he actually had an arc. You know, it would have been so lame if they would have just ended his sort of story arc with him getting left on the aircraft carrier, and then that was it.
No, they gave everybody that they gave something to do, they got to do it. Even Bob, a character that offends me, because it was my fucking dream to be a fighter pilot until I found out you couldn't if you had glasses. And that motherfucker had fucking glasses on, even when I swear to God, he had fucking glasses on, even when he was in the fucking cockpit. I was just so offended by that kind of, I was hyping up their realism. They really they broke the camel with that one.
Yeah, because there's no other way to indicate that a character is a nerd.
Exactly.
Other than that they have glasses.
No, they're just fashion specs. There's just frames. Whatever you want to tell yourself. But I have a big complaint with this movie. It is that if there's one thing it didn't bring with it from the 80s, it was the steam, the sex of that original movie. Whether it's, take my breath away, like romance bullshit, or all that homoeroticism. Like, you couldn't have had a more sexless movie. Even his, was it Jennifer Connelly playing the love interest? They literally just, fall into bed, and then we get a slow pan away. It was the most chaste shit I've ever seen. And this is supposed to be Tom Cruise. I'm worried about the man, because this is obviously his Twilight. I forgot to bring this up. Did every single screening of Top Gun Maverick begin with Tom Cruise basically just popping up on screen and being like, "Thank you for joining me. It means so much that you're here to watch my fucking movie in a theater." I died. I was like, I've made Tom Cruise happy.
Yeah, and he's like, I did this for you.
Yeah.
It was
because he was a COVID monster. All those recordings of him destroying people's souls because they went somewhere they weren't supposed to.
Yeah, that happened at both screenings I was at. The little Tom Cruise video, and that was hilarious because it was so unnecessary. And
what would have made it necessary? Because I don't want this to become a trend if it's going to be lame every single time.
Well, the thing about those little videos that play before movies is it seems like they do those a lot of times if you go to the Thursday night showings or the midnight showings, because when I went to Batman, when I went to the Thursday night showing of Batman when that came out, and there was a little video like that beforehand with Colin Farrell and Robert Pattinson, and
so this is just part of the PR rollout.
Yeah, pretty much. But it's just strange that is before every showing instead of just the Thursday night showings for the fans.
Tom is just really happy to be back, dude. He's been away so long. He hasn't gotten the juice. I don't know. This movie wasn't sexy enough for me. It was dry. It was a dry ass fucking movie. I
agree. That was the other thing I was going to bring up about what I didn't like about it, because I'm not necessarily one of these perverts who thinks that Marvel movies need to have sex scenes, but this was missing it because in the first one, there's a full-on sex scene in a PG movie, and they're sticking him and
there's so many wet butts walking around in towels.
Yeah, that too, and what's the name of the female lead from Top Gun?
Kelly McGillis.
Kelly McGillis. Their sex scene, they are showing full-on tongue down throat in that scene.
Well, Berlin just fucking shreds.
Yeah. But this one, it's literally they fall on the bed and then cut to a shot of them post-coitus, and they both are sitting there with the sheet at shoulder level.
Yeah, I know. It was
what the fuck?
This was a movie from the 50s. I was so it bothered me. I was I expect more flesh, not because I'm a pervert, but just because I was led to believe that there was cocaine involved with the making of this film. Because you got fucking Simpson's name on the fucking like it did. They had me with that, obviously, but they obviously bamboozled me into thinking that this was gonna hold up as an 80s film all the way through, because modern mores seeped in. But at least they gave an emotional core to this movie. The whole thing with Goose, his son Rooster, like, that pissed me off because they didn't even let Meg Ryan come back to, like, own her character's bullshit. Their whole disagreement is just Tom Cruise, kept him out of the Naval Academy for a few years because his mom wanted him to. Like, I don't know. Like, and he won't tell him the truth because he doesn't want him to hate his mom so he can hate me because I'm a hero. Like that's the gist of the arc, but it works well enough when you realize, oh, this is a legit suicide mission and not just some vague sortie that they're being sent on at the end of the movie so we can burn the last of our budget. It's actually a well-conceived sequence that they've built up, and it's satisfying when they're able to pull it off, even though it veers into, and this is something I was going to bring up earlier about Christopher McQuarrie, but this and the Mission Impossible movies are the closest thing we will ever get to Metal Gear Solid, because you have this old dinosaur, warhorse brought out of his airport, his personal airport, where he's reconstructing World War II fighter jets, so that he can lead these young whippersnappers in a war to save America from nuclear, death, and it just and then all the mustaches, Rooster is definitely like a proto, Big Boss, like eventually in this continuity, but like just watching that trailer for the new Mission Impossible movie and then seeing Top Gun, just made me just realize between Tom Cruise and McQuarrie, this is it. This is as close as we're going to get to Metal Gear Solid being made. Like that's what this basically is. You got them like surviving both of their planes getting destroyed and then just finding an F-14 Tomcat that they could just fuel up and fly away in. Like, it was just such wonderful video game logic that it didn't offend me when it probably should have.
Yeah, it gets a little out there towards the end. Like there's that maneuver that the 5th generation fighter makes where it like goes, I don't know, like it goes like on its side and then it like flies behind them. Do you remember? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
When it kind of like ramps up and then it goes behind them and then Miles Teller's like, "What the fuck was that?"
Yeah.
So that was a little ridiculous, but I think it's all done well enough that you kind of look past it all. You sort of you were saying earlier about the build up to the mission. I thought that was so well done, where they set it up as a near impossible mission, and then throughout the movie they keep piling on things that make it even more impossible. Like it's been moved up a week, and like you need to go fly with them now, and they just keep piling the stuff on that makes it even harder. And I just thought that was very, very well done.
Yeah, you can tell that there actually was a movie written here, which you cannot say about the first Top Gun movie. Like, that movie is just an 80s visual tone poem, if there ever was one. It's an art piece, less than an actual narrative film. So they actually gave us a real movie this time around. Because, I don't know, I never really got the fascination with Top Gun as a movie. I just fucking think that F-14 Tomcats are awesome, and that was basically my takeaway from this movie. To an extent, was these jets are fucking rad, but the only reason we're using an F-18 in this movie instead of a 5th generation fighter to do the bombing run is because all you have to do to stop one of those giant F-35s, which are this $1 trillion disaster for our government. They've been funding it for years and they don't work because you can literally set up a firewall and neutralize all of their like sensors and arrays so that they can't even drop a bomb accurately. Like they're undone with like this $1 trillion piece of equipment is undone by something that they're buying at Iranian Radio Shack. So we have to send in F-18s. Like the context behind that also kind of undermines the notion that these people really were considerate, and did some research, because there's some gonzo wackiness happening, if you know too much, which I know a little of, because there was because why wouldn't the F-35 be in this movie? Because the federal government knows that it's a duck, it doesn't work, and they don't want it showcased. Like, it was going to be in the Avengers movie 10 years ago, the first Avengers movie, and then they pulled it out because they were going to have it doing things that didn't work yet. Like where they go into Harrier mode and they hover and they do that wacky shit where they like whoosh-ow, and like get behind you. Like the what the fuck was that moment where Miles Teller shits his pants? Yeah, like the parts.
It had probably had something to do with this was obviously made in collaboration with the United States military.
It had to be.
Exactly that.
Yeah. But the military gave them like full access to do whatever the fuck they wanted to. Everything they couldn't do in the 80s, where it was like, we're lucky that we can be on the aircraft carrier right now for $20,000 a day. Like, now the military is like, please, for the love of God, make us look good. And and I don't think modern kids would want to sign up to put themselves in that much danger when they know they can just be a drone pilot and live in Nevada, where there's legal weed and UFC fights and God knows what else. I don't know, they can go to, Los Angeles and watch esports because they're bound to be nerds. I don't know. There's a disconnection between what this movie did in the past and what it's capable of doing today, because it's such a totally different world. But at least they made a good movie. That's my thesis statement on the experience.
Yeah. What about I guess let's talk a little bit about the acting in the movie, specifically Tom Cruise.
Okay, yeah.
Sort of the emotional core of the movie. Eventually maybe lead it into talking about Val Kilmer.
I suppose we should, yeah. Because I don't know, Tom Cruise was a very humble man in this movie. His character gets shit on constantly. It literally gets called, he gets called a broke bitch by this character who I didn't realize until after the fact is somebody I'm supposed to know and care about. The daughter of the admiral from the first movie that ships him off to Top Gun.
Oh yeah, that was
it's like, who knows the lore that deeply? I don't.
Yeah, I had to look it up afterwards because I did not understand that the first time I saw it, but
I liked all of the banter was good, like you pointed out earlier, but I just didn't give a shit about any of the other scenes. If they weren't in a jet, I just got a little, it just went through my head and went out, and I don't even remember what they talked about. You know what I mean? Was there something deep and personal that they were sharing whenever they were hanging out and going sailing? Because maybe there's a reason why 80s movies were just montages, because writing is hard.
Yeah. The Jennifer Connelly subplot was, I don't know, it almost felt like it was necessary because of the first movie. We need to have the romance subplot because the first movie deals with romance so much.
No, because this movie should have been about his undying love for ice and the secret, unrequited relationship that they had. This movie, Maverick, it should have been about him going his own way, doing his own thing, and making this movie the Brokeback Mountain of military movies is the missed opportunity of a lifetime that was never going to be possible because, as we have pointed out, Tom Cruise is a Scientologist and therefore hates gay people.
He I guess say what you will about his wackadoo beliefs, but him, I think when he wants to be, he really is a really great actor. There are parts in this movie where, you really feel sort of the emotional gut punch. And I guess to speak about the Val Kilmer scene that was in the movie, I thought that was really pretty tastefully done.
Yes.
And
it could have been really bad. It would have like I didn't realize he was actually in the movie. I just thought they just had him for a picture. So and I thought that would have been really tasteless to just have him we just want to take a picture of you. You know, they went the extra mile. They got AIs to recreate his voice, or like supposedly. Yeah.
Is that how they did it? Okay.
That's how they did it. Because if anybody has watched, or like if you have watched the documentary made from his home movies, it is heartbreaking seeing him today. It is so hard. Yeah.
Yeah, that was, I did watch that, and yeah, it is very devastating, and it almost lends, if you know all that stuff, if you know the backstory behind his life for the past 10 years or whatever, it puts that scene in even more of a sad place. Yeah. Where it's like, just him having cancer and, barely being able to talk and using the keyboard thing. And yeah, and sort of their hug and stuff like that. Yeah, I thought it was all very, very well done.
Very, very poignant. Because before the cancer, back in 2012, there was desire from everyone involved to get the gang back together to make a Top Gun 2 back in 2012. But it was undone by Tony Scott finding out he had some form of inoperable cancer and, committing suicide, as a response to it. And you don't want to be, I don't know, there's definitely people out there that are going to point to like the making of the first Top Gun and being exposed to, some sort of, what's the word? Carcinogen or something like that. Like as being why they developed cancer, but who the fuck knows? But it's interesting and sad that we could have had this movie sooner, involving the actually Tony Scott. But think about all the movies that man could have made. But I feel reassured knowing that this movie got made in his absence, because it at least is it's not as awesome as his Top Gun 2 would have been. Like, I don't know. I just can't stop thinking about what he would have done with this.
Yeah, he I think he probably would have taken sort of the same approach of making it into more of an action movie than the first one was, because that's kind of the way his career sort of went, especially towards the end. He was making a lot of action movies, and but yeah, the movie does have sort of the ghost of Tony Scott
all over it. Yeah, and the cocaine dust of Don Simpson.
Yeah. But is there anything else you wanted to mention or talk about with regards to...
I have covered every base conceivable. I after I watched the movie, I listened to the Chapo Trap House coverage of it, and they were so lost in the political minutia, but at the same time, I agreed with them completely when they just said this is the greatest thing involving modern aircraft that will ever be made. Like, they'll never make a movie this good again. And I think they're correct in that notion. Like, see this, because we ain't getting one as cool as this in theaters anytime soon. It takes a singular madman. It takes operating, Thetan level 8, to actually pull off the impossible like this. Which is probably why he's making all those Mission Impossible movies.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, the thing about Tom Cruise is, imagine if Paramount would have gotten their way and this would have been released straight to streaming, and how shitty that would have been.
It would have looked so bad. It wouldn't have been cool at all. And you kind of you have more forgiveness for people like Denis Villeneuve, who was like, "Fuck you, Dune's going to theaters, hell or high water, suck my dick." There's more respect now, knowing how hard it is to convince these studios to even go along with that. Like, the fucking Northman is going to be on streaming any day now. I think it already is on.
It is,
yeah. So like that, it feels like that movie was just in theaters like a week or two ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of nice in some. I mean, in some ways, it's, I guess, not the healthiest thing that this man has so much power, but in some ways it's nice that Tom Cruise can literally just be like, no, it's going to theaters. And
Fuck
I don't
you,
know
it's going to theaters.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard the story behind how the movie was like greenlit, but basically, McQuarrie came to Tom Cruise, and Tom Cruise was not interested in doing this movie at all. And McQuarrie came to him and pitched it to him.
Hell yeah,
and
brother.
Then
Okay.
Tom Cruise called Paramount and just said, "We're doing another Top Gun," and that was it. Like
That's
he
beautiful.
was the one. He was the one who made the decision, not Paramount. It was him.
Yeah,
You know,
he is truly the last movie star. You know, like that holds up. You know, he is the man. No one will ever be as rad as this dude playing Pete Maverick Mitchell. And so yeah, definitely check this shit out. It's good stuff.
Yeah, go in theaters while it's still there before Jurassic World Dominion takes all of its movie screens.
Oh, because that day is coming. Yeah, that movie is going to be a fucking asshole. God, this movie kind of is an asshole. The next movie we're going to talk about. It is. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I missed out on like the true master of found footage COVID movies, a genre that is probably going to continue to be a thing because this guy obviously has some skill and an ability to make it on the cheap. But what's his name again? Rob Savage? Yeah, Rob Savage's latest film, DASHCAM. What the fucking hell was this fucking movie? How does this happen? Whose idea was this? What, like, where did this come from, Matt? I pull up a trailer for it. Because the premise to this is amazing, at least on its face.
Yeah, Rob Savage, if people don't know, he made, I think 2 years ago, Host, which was another found footage movie about some friends who got together during the pandemic and did a seance over Zoom.
Yeah.
And then the demon that they release comes to each one of their houses and kills them off one by one. And
that movie is apparently one of the scariest of all time.
Yes, yeah, it's been they did some sort of study with like heart rate monitors and like sweat monitors, and they determined that people's heart rate was the most elevated and people sweat the most while watching Host over any other popular movie that's known as one of the scariest movies of all time. And so this is his follow-up, and he obviously for as straight-laced as Host was,
this one is off its fucking gourd.
Yeah, this one is crazy, and he clearly has a lot to say that he wants to say. And oh God, I don't know. I was not with this movie at all in the first 20 minutes.
It was pretty rough. Yeah, it
was rough. I would go so far to say that I hated the first 20 minutes, and it was kind of a slog. But then once the spooky stuff started happening, I was like, okay, I'm getting on the same page as you, movie. And then it kind of just spiraled from there into a cacophony of alternating feelings of I hate this and I love this at the same time.
You know, that's pretty reasonable. It's a very polarizing film. It's like hovering above 50%, like on one of the aggregating sites. So but luckily it's short, especially if you skip the fucking end credits. But
an hour 9, I think.
Yeah, like it's for a found footage movie, it should be that short. It should feel like literally something that you would just find on a memory card, and you can't fit much more than that on most modern memory cards these days, unless you're really shelling out for it. But the main character of this is a alt music personality who's pretty well established on the internet. And oh my god, un momento, por favor.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll vamp.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's I think her name's Annie, and she is sort of alt-right, almost like a QAnon type
Yeah, that's what surprised me the most, was just how much of a shitlord she was.
Yeah, she. Oh my god, just so like annoying, and in some ways, I think he goes way too far with it. But the thing is, no doubt, Rob Savage is probably would classify himself as a liberal, probably.
Probably.
And
yeah.
if you don't take it that far, I think he runs the risk of people thinking that he's making this character his main character because he likes her ideas, or he you know, like you have to take it to the nth degree. Otherwise, people, I could just see like the headlines now where people are like, you know, director makes a horror movie about, you know, alt-right, sympathetic horror movie. And so he has to take it that far because otherwise people are going to misconstrue it. And so in some ways, I don't think that really works because I was so put off by her in the first like 20 minutes of the movie, and
she was very rough. Like obviously this is probably very much improvised, because if someone literally wrote out the things she says, like I can't really say it because I have little ears in the room with me now. But yeah, it was incomprehensible to me. Just all the different like there was a stretch at one point in the movie of like 3 minutes where all the words out of her mouth are some like it's like swear ad-libs.
Yeah, like sex positions.
And, oh my thing and my thing. Oh, that poop on my thing. You know, like it's just over and over and over and over and over again. Very repetitive.
This woman, I was looking her up a little bit after the movie, and the actress is actually, I think, originally a stand-up comedian, and that probably is where that comes from. Where that's probably how she's able to vamp rap so effectively.
No, that's me.
Because those raps are pretty insane.
Pretty insane. But that's the thing. She's playing like what the most annoying person in modern society is the public live streamer who just walks around and just records every moment and broadcasts every moment because it's their job. The one thing he does nail is the comment stream in the corner. That's just always there. That stuff was great. That added a lot to it. It made up for the parts that were kind of middling. Because this character is awful. She is awful to her quote-unquote friend, you know, the only other like character in the movie. And she is intended to be terrible. And the problem for a lot of the internet folk who would get upset about even having the anti-character, the anti-protagonist of this movie being the way she is, like they don't appreciate that this isn't an endorsement, and it never was. You know, they're so wrapped up in their concerns that they can't allow anybody to be able to say that they like something. So that means removing it from the conversation entirely. It's just a classic reason to censor. It's like, well, I don't want anyone getting any ideas. Not that anybody should have the ideas this character does, because oh my god, they are insufferable. It's just one thing after another. She goes from like being charming in a filthy Frank kind of way to just being boring from one scene to another. But yeah, once it starts getting like weird, you know, and there's just random crap happening, it's kind of like the horror movie version of like Everything Everywhere All at Once, but with like a budget of $500. You know, but they get really creative because it's not that this is actually on a dash cam the whole time. We're in a cell phone sometimes. We're stuck on her head in some sequences. You know, like they're putting the camera realistically wherever it could possibly go. And
I think you mentioned the budget, and it's no doubt very, very shoestring budget, but they use it so like effectively, and a lot of the movie's effects, I never really thought that anything looked terrible as far as the effect went. I was like, wow, for a low budget movie, some of this stuff is actually really good. Like the monster that comes out of the woman at the end, and when the car levitates while she's in it, it crashes on the ground, and then when it goes under, she drives into the lake. And I was like, okay, this is all pretty decent.
It doesn't look pedestrian, to its credit. Yeah.
And then you had spoke about the little comments and stuff, and I wanted to say something about that too, about how I really liked that. I mean, that they were there, but they weren't there the whole movie. I think it would have been so annoying if they were there the entire movie, and I'm glad that they kind of took them out of the equation whenever like the signal got bad. And yeah, they were really funny though. What I'm kind of curious is there one that was like your favorite, like a comment that you saw?
Oh God, what was it? Oh well, it was because they actually play a part. You know, there's lots of great shitlord posts in there that are authentic and felt like real to me. Like I was like, this is genuine comment sections that they're getting a lot of like their ideas from. But I just felt the internet was honored. But the part where she's like in the house and they're trying to spook her into thinking that there's someone like in the shot with her that she can't see.
Oh yeah, when they're like behind you.
Behind you. Yeah, like that's where I was like, I realize who I'm in the audience with. And I guess that's what makes this unique as a found footage movie. You actually know, because of that feature, you are aware of who is in the audience with you. And that is half the fun of live stream chats, is just knowing that you're with all the degenerates that are also tuning in to just like spam post PogChamp or whatever it is. And you don't see that really, done in any fashion in a mainstream film that wouldn't just, wind up feeling completely lame. It worked for me, I guess. And, I can't think of something funny or like really like memorable, unfortunately, but I did enjoy it.
The one that I really liked, the comment was...
There
was one where somebody had clearly set up like a fake GoFundMe that they were going to try and get people to put money towards, because they were like... Angela, because the monster character is Angela, and there was a comment that was like, here's Angela's GoFundMe, and then they just like obviously made up some fake GoFundMe account and put the link in the chat. So I thought that was a really good one.
That's what I mean. He understands the internet. He understands the kind of nonsense that we deal with. And her character, a complete asshole American who goes to England, where there's contact tracing, and her friend is just trying to make it as a food delivery guy for...
Yeah, he's like a DoorDash driver or something. But that was really great. And I guess to get more into the spoiler section, what did you make of all the sort of background? I mean, we never really get an explicit like layout of the plot, but what did you think of all the sort of stuff going on in the background? What did you make of what was going on?
It's hard for me to actually say that I understood completely what was going on, because this is such a frenzy, as it gets going, there's just so much happening. So my brain processed about half of it. And then the other half, I was just like, I don't know what's happening. You know what I mean? Like I felt like it was given to me in a choppy way, even though that's just But to break it down for me, then what was going on? I knew that there was like that old lady Angela isn't actually an old lady. Her mouth is bolted shut. She's vomiting blood, and then this other lady shows up and says that she's her daughter. So why was she older?
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that I didn't really pick up on an explanation for, but there's something to be said there about there's like some sort of cult, and they go to that house that's basically like the cult's base of operations.
Okay.
There's the part where she's walking around in the basement of that building, and she sees all of like the like manuscripts pages on the wall, and they clearly like conjured some sort of demon and then put it into this little girl.
Okay, yeah.
And then that's what happens at the end, is the demon sort of like bursts out, and that was kind of what I gleaned from it.
So should this have been a episode, like a segment of a VHS anthology, or does this actually hold up enough to be its own movie?
See, it's funny you mentioned that, because I was actually gonna bring that up too. Is this movie bears a striking resemblance to Timo Tahanto's segment from VHS 2. I think it's called Safe Haven. I don't know have you seen VHS 2?
I believe I have, yes.
It's the one with the cult in the Philippines.
Yeah, that one was weird.
And then they all like blow up at the end. All the people just like explode, and this movie bears like a striking resemblance to that. I would not be surprised to find out that he kind of got a lot of inspiration from that. And I personally would have liked if this was more so the length of Host, because Host was perfect at about 45 minutes.
Okay, so it's a borderline short film.
Yeah, and it kind of gets in and gets out, and yeah, I mean, like I said before, I think this movie would have done itself a favor by not including like a full 20 minutes of how insufferable she was at the beginning.
Goddamn, yeah. They had her, this artist, they needed to give her a canvas to work on.
Yeah. They could have gotten the point across in less time, I think, though. Yeah. About, just what a shitlord she is. And but yeah, I think it overall, taking it as a whole package, I liked it more so than I didn't, and I think it justifies the hour and 9 minutes or whatever it was. And
so here's a question for you: would this have been more successful had they gone? Because I read that book about the Blair Witch Project. What if they had tried to go out of their way to make people think that it was genuine found footage? Why give up the ghost and let us know that it's a movie? When is found footage truly the most successful? For you, like, is it when you can trick yourself into believing that it's real, or is it like when it's actually constructed well as a movie experience?
I just don't know if that would work in 2022, because immediately any sort of like online marketing campaign of them trying to convince the internet that it is real would be met with a barrage of people who would be doing a bunch of armchair research into how the movie is not real.
Yeah, I suppose.
So it wouldn't really work that way, I don't think, this year. I think that's the only reason
it would be too easy to debunk. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So, but I think, the thing that makes a successful found footage movie is having a novel idea at this point, because there's been so many of them that you have to have some sort of novel idea like this film does to make it work. Because the last really, really successful one would probably be Paranormal Activity.
Yeah, that's true. And
the reason why that worked is because of, unlike Blair Witch, Blair Witch was filmed with like a camcorder in like the woods. A lot of Paranormal Activity was filmed with like security cameras and like cell phone cameras, and at the time that was such like a novel idea, like to make a movie where you're using like surveillance cameras as like a means to get your plot across or whatever, or like a webcam or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's not really a new thing anymore.
Yeah, because there's probably dozens of movies that have been shot with Nest Home surveillance systems.
Yeah,
at this point.
Yeah. Yep. And so whatever the next thing is, and I think found footage is sort of done at this point, and whatever the next thing is going to have to sort of come up with something new for the genre, whatever that is. So.
Yeah, because this definitely brings it into the live streaming realm in a way that I feel, pays, proper homage to where to like what it's talking about without coming off as out of touch. Like it feels very in touch. It feels authentic. But yeah, I just wonder, like, is he gonna make another one, like another found footage film? Is it just gonna be 90 minutes this time? Yeah, it's like, how is he gonna set it apart going forward? Because he's part of the Blumhouse family. He's part of the Shudder crew now. So because he's got a home. So is it just gonna stay in his lane, or is he gonna do something different next time around?
Yeah, I would hope not. I mean, I hope he does do something different, because I think he's kind of milked this one dry, and he does. I was looking on his IMDb page before we started, and he does have some other short films and stuff like that aren't all explicitly found footage. So, it's just that ever since he got famous, this is what he's been doing. So yeah. I don't know if he just thinks it works. It's the only thing that works for him. But I hope that he does something new, or maybe something a little more mainstream, or just like a smaller indie horror movie, something like that.
Yeah. Or something completely different. Like, what if, I don't know, there's just a kind of movie, there's lots of movies that just don't get made anymore. And that was another thing that reading Best.Movie.Year.Ever made me realize. There ain't nobody making movies like American Beauty. For example, that kind of weird, I don't know, there maybe are some, but I just can't see anybody else making a found footage movie I'd be interested in seeing except for this guy. But there's got to be something more for him than really cheeky, horror satire. Like, there's more to life than this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I guess when it's all kind of said and done, I would recommend it more so than I wouldn't.
Yeah, exactly. There's something there for everybody. It's memorable at the very least.
Just try and get through the first act.
Yeah, which is why I think that no one should watch this on a TV. They should watch this on a computer monitor, on a laptop screen, in like another window. So like they have like, give yourself like maybe 4 inches of space, so you
pretend like it's real.
Yeah, exactly, because that's on the level where it works very, very well, I would say. But that kind of does it for this. It's very interesting to me that we have one movie that demands the theatrical experience and one that absolutely should not be watched in a theater, for any reason. That's the juxtaposition. But that was DASHCAM. That was Top Gun. Do we want to check in with the summer movie situation, or
I think we can wait a little longer, because we did 2 weeks ago. So
that's true.
Let's give it some more time. Maybe after Jurassic Park is out for a week.
Let's see what happens to Doctor Strange once he gets kicked onto Disney Plus. But that's really all we have. Otherwise, we do have one parting question, a new one from you. But we're gonna kind of just bypass what's coming out next week because this show has gone on long enough. So, what was it? Run it by us.
Yeah. So I was just kind of curious about who was your first on-screen crush you remember having, and I want to know about like what movie, what show was she from, how old were you at the time, and why do you think you were? In particular, why was that like the impetus moment, the moment where you were like, oh, okay, there's something about this person that I'm attracted to.
Okay.
So
I know exactly how I'm going to answer this. I can answer it right now.
Okay.
But I'll hold off.
Hold on. This is one I actually have to think about a little bit, because for some reason my mind just doesn't go back that far, and I'm trying to rack my brain for something before like middle school, basically, or like before elementary school, if I can. But I might have to settle for my early teens or something like that.
See, my answer goes all the way back to early 90s. I can trace it all the way back then. And Yeah, no, like we're talking about a movie that was rented so many times that my mom refused to buy it later in life. Because she basically paid to own it, like many times over. But there's a lot of reasons for me to like that movie. But in hindsight, as an adult, I know what the draw really was, and I'll discuss that more next week. I'm looking forward to that one. So so thank you all for watching. Go watch Top Gun in the theater. Do yourself a favor, and then as a palate cleanse, do some salvia, and then watch DASHCAM.
Yeah. Oh, real quick before we go, just to say kind of what our intentions are for next week. I think we had talked about doing Crimes of the Future if
I can see it.
If you can see it, and then if not, we'll probably default to Jurassic World. So,
boo! I want strange human organs. I want to see the new flesh, not old dino flesh. Yeah. I'm not 12 anymore. God damn it! But yeah, this was from the Mezzanine. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Matt. Have a good week, everybody.
Yeah. See ya.